Hello, and welcome to Indie Game Spotlight, the series where we take a look at little-known indie games that are absolutely worth your time. Today, we're taking a look at Curiosity, a compact puzzle game by Rob Streeting. Curiosity opens with a few ambient sounds. It then drops you in a locked room with a single objective: escape. Your only option is to take a single ladder down into your new prison, which you will quickly discover to be a giant puzzle box consisting of underground rooms, ladders, doors, and controls that affect the entire map. In order to escape, you must come to understand and use the puzzle box's mechanics. You are guided through the puzzle by visual clues, amazing sound effects, and a scope, which you can use to look in adjacent rooms. The game also looks great, with its nostalgia-inducing art style, dictated by the Pico 8 engine in which Curiosity was made. All this should be more than enough reason to give the game a go. But before you do, stick around for an analysis, including comments on the design and development process from the game's creator, Rob Streeting. Warning, there will be slight spoilers for the game as we'll discuss the design. However, we won't give away the solutions to the puzzle. Though the whole game is a treat to play, the main drawing point for us is definitely the puzzles, or perhaps more appropriately, the one big puzzle. Rob built and designed the game to be one big interacting puzzle box, where instead of loose disconnected puzzles that stand in the way of key items, the whole dungeon is one big puzzle, where the solution also means finishing the game. What makes this puzzle so satisfying to solve is its holistic approach. As a player, you'll generally not expect the puzzle box design when you start the game. Thus, when faced with the components of the puzzle, it's easy to think they are slightly cryptic standalone challenges. However, the game quickly forces you to use interactions between the pieces to progress. Rob very intentionally built these interacting pieces, enabling the player to have an aha moment when they get the pieces working together. Not only does this make the solution very satisfying, it also makes the player feel proud for figuring out the hidden connection between the pieces. When asked if this design choice was due to time constraints or if it was meant to be one puzzle, Rob said the following.
Having one big puzzle box design was absolutely always the plan for this. If you've ever seen Mark Brown's Boss Key series, you'll see he signs the praise off Zelda dungeons that follow the puzzle box design. And I guess this was on my mind when I was thinking of ideas.
Though Rob intentionally created the puzzle box, he does admit that it kept his scope small and helped him finishing the game.
I found this actually helped me a lot to actually finish the project. Limiting the scope to the single puzzle helped me focus and made it easier to motivate myself to complete it, without getting distracted by adding more and more.
With this design, Rob creates an experience where finding the pieces to the puzzle is part of the discovery, which strongly contributes to the feeling of complete understanding and mastery that a player gets when they complete the puzzle. When we asked him about the experience he wanted to create, he mentioned being inspired by games such as Myst and Riven by Cyan Games, and games like Outer Wilds.
I love how you get dropped into a world full of intriguing things to play with, but it isn't immediately obvious what everything is for. I think finding new things to interact with in those games was always really exciting, and you would get the epiphany when you finally connect all the dots and work out what you need to do. I really wanted to try and emulate that.
Of course, designing a puzzle out of a lot of interesting pieces sounds like every designer's dream, but having the player actually put everything together is not as easy as you might think. In Curiosity, Rob took great care to make sure the player understands how the pieces work, leaving just enough room for you to put everything together. It can also be easy for the player to lose track of the overall goal of the game when engaging with the pieces. Rob beautifully tackles this problem right from the start, with a genius opening. First, a few seconds of darkness with just sound, sort of putting you on edge. You are then presented with a room with two exits. One leads outside and is locked. The other one is a ladder that leads you into the puzzle. A single word floats at the center of the screen: escape, firmly putting the final goal of getting through the locked door in the back of your mind for the rest of the game, giving you something to work towards when figuring out how the next piece of the puzzle is going to help you. let's look at how Rob put these concepts and ideas into an actual puzzle game. Notably, Rob didn't start implementing the puzzle into code immediately. He started by creating a paper version of the puzzle and messing around in it until he was happy with the results.
I drew and cut out a bunch of squares of paper and then drew on some rooms that I thought would be interesting. Then, I moved them around into different configurations and tried playing through the game with a little red cube from the board game Pandemic serving as the player.
This made it easy to quickly iterate over different layouts, which helped with finding the layout Rob liked the most. After implementing the paper puzzle into Pico 8 and creating the core game, the other changes came pretty late into development. Except some slight changes to make it harder to get completely stuck, the puzzle stayed mostly true to the original planning. This shows how important it can be to test out your ideas thoroughly before spending loads of time implementing them. What also helped Rob decide which aspects to change was his rigorous playtesting. He sent out his game to his friends, asking them to play the game.
I sent the game out to a few friends and got some really good feedback on some of the issues they ran into. One of the biggest problems was people getting too far through the game, understanding too little. This led to people making incorrect assumptions about the way the game worked and made it very difficult and frustrating to progress.
Rob's workflow makes one thing very apparent. That is, when interviewing Rob, one thing he mentioned multiple times was his playtesting. Not only did it help him improve the puzzle, it also showed him alternate solutions and even gave him an idea for a feature. When asked about playtesting, Rob explained,
"It's so tempting not to playtest and just release the game, but it was very enlightening."
The playtesters allowed Rob to see the puzzle with new eyes. This led him to change the layout and mechanics a bit.
I wanted there to be multiple ways for people to figure out what was going on, to try and make it more difficult for people to get completely stuck. For example, I added the map room, which isn't technically necessary to solve the puzzle.
Rob went on to mention that before the map room, the only way of keeping track of where you were was with the scope and pen and paper. Rob also made some other notable changes. He made a locked door stand in the way of the control room, which meant the player would know how the scope worked before they continued. He also placed the key so the player must use and understand the moving room before they can get it. On the final playtest, his fiancée even found an alternate solution. Rob opted to keep this solution in the game and reward the players with an Easter egg should they solve it this way.
I didn't even know about it until then. I thought about fixing it since it seemed like a bug. However, it also played into my philosophy of having more than one way to progress.
The visual audio cue, don't worry, we'll get to it, was also an idea born out of playtesting. There are a lot of audio hints in Curiosity that help make the connection between the pieces. Eventually, this caused a problem for one of the playtesters.
One of my playtesters played with the sound off and really struggled because my game relies quite a lot on sound as an extra level of feedback to your actions.
This led to the player misinterpreting certain actions, which was incredibly frustrating for the player. The main problem about visualizing the audio was that it could make the puzzle too obvious if Rob wasn't careful with its implementation. Rob decided to add the visual audio cue, a small box on the top left that translated the sounds to words. This small change doesn't subtract from the puzzle, but suddenly people that play without sound or are hard of hearing can play the game without drawbacks. This greatly increased Curiosity's accessibility in games is very important, but sadly it's often overlooked, especially in lower budget indie games where there aren't always enough resources to implement these kinds of systems. As a player and developer, it's easy to forget about accessibility if it never hinders you yourself. However, making your game playable for people with disabilities is very important. Games should be enjoyed by everyone that likes games, and nothing should stop people from playing what they want to play, especially if it's something they can't do anything about. Just by adding color correction, a variable text size, or a visual audio cue, you can make your game that much more accessible to all gamers.
I think accessibility is a really important thing to consider, especially when you have to advertise the game yourself. I really wanted as many people to play this as possible, and that meant trying to make it work for everyone.
We applaud Curiosity's addition of the visual audio cue and implore you to try and implement these type of systems should you be thinking about making a game yourself. Curiosity is a charming and fun game. Its puzzle box design gives the game a holistic feeling, which is immensely satisfying to sink into. The retro style, sharp movement and great sound effects make it easy to run around and get lost in this world put forth by Rob. It is an interesting and complete experience, which leaves us with just one question. More, please? Rob said he's still contemplating which project to tackle next. However, he might take up the whole puzzle box genre and make it his own. Whatever the case, we'll be eagerly awaiting Rob's next step. In the meantime, check out Curiosity on itch.io, link in the description. A big thanks to Rob Streeting for letting us interview him for this video, and thank you very much for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comments, we would love to hear from you. We hope you've enjoyed this indie spotlight. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.